This is a recording of the fanfiction Forever Royal Final Battle Retold by GoldenTigerEyeMania on AO3. This work is rated teen and up audiences without any archive warnings. The amulet was different than Sofia thought it would be. There was an almost beautiful way to the way the purple and green fought for space above and around her. The floor was silver and vaguely reflective, almost like the gem was stained glass with the sun shining through it. It reminded her of the window of her family that got put in recently. She would have spent more time looking, seeing what Elena had to spend decades living in, if it weren't for the sickening laugh behind her. Vor was hunched over, laughing in an awful, stunted way, like the spirit had never genuinely laughed before. Her shoulders shook and grew. There was a kind of bubbling just barely visible under the layers of cloth. Far too many limbs and eyes met Sofia when the villainess finally stopped. The face that had looked mostly human was now a broken mask, still covering most of the real Vor's face, but the bottom half was a mess of mandibles and fangs. They clicked and shook as if tasting themselves, and the insect limbs among the humanish hands tapped out a discord of pings against the floor. Good. That voice couldn't have been any more wrong if it tried, as layer upon layer of sound filtered just above the clacking of the monster's maw. I can rid this world of the only pathetic little good do-gooder left that could open the aisles again. Screams echoed above them, familiar screams. Amber! The protector. You have no time to waste on a pampered brat like her. A blast of magic hit Sofia in her left shoulder and left a wound bleeding and festering like it was weeks old and infected. Her own short shriek a harmonic match for her sister's. After all, now you're in my grasp, and I enjoy playing with my food. Sofia could feel the color drain from her face fast enough to leave her lightheaded. Dread pooled in the pit of her stomach. Her mind was loud with the instinct to run, but her feet stayed glued to the polished ground. She was frozen as Vor rose and rose on a body that hadn't been that long last Sofia had checked. You won't get to eat me. The words tasted like a lie, even to herself, but Sofia had to say something, say anything to distract herself, to get her body to listen past the pain in her shoulder and the fear in her nerves. No matter how small or trembly her voice was. But you see, my dear. It had to be her mind playing tricks. Her mom's voice wasn't in that chorus. I know what makes people tick. The monster looked down and followed her as Sofia tried to make distance. Their darkest impulses. She could see her reflection in the fake eyes of the mask now. Their greatest fears. Vor's mandibles were right above her, and she felt like she was being watched from every angle, like the beast could see her very soul. And I know your greatest fear has just come true. Sofia finally moved. Her right arm swung in a tight curve, the enchantment rope striking the mask with a sharp crack, and she ran like a woman damned to the sound of that horrible laugh. Only turning when she fumbled her way into summoning her fairy's wand. its pure white surface such a pretty contrast to the darkness engulfing the amulet. She cast a shield, just barely too slow to stop a blast from hitting her entirely. The muck cut through the fabric of her dress to attack her ribs like a knife through soft butter. Her teeth nearly cracked with the force it took to smother her scream. They traded blasts, and soon it became a dance of dodges and power as the monster started to sing. It was strange how the magic of song could be used to control the flow of battle, how it could force someone to follow its rhythm or cause other magics to fail. Just because I'm by myself does not mean I will fold. Her voice trembled slightly, but it still gave her some breathing room. I don't need help to battle you, I just need to be bold. The lyrics needed to be thought out, to be strong, to let her take control of their deadly dance. Not afraid to stand alone. My dear, you won't be standing long. Pain blossomed on Sofia's arms, even through her magic shields. Her attacks landed, but never seemed to do any damage Vor couldn't smooth over. Sweat beaded on her brow, and she couldn't help but curse the layers of her dress as they fell into her injuries. At some point, her shoes had been thrown into the monster's maw, their remnants covered in a thick slime. Something hit her in the stomach. She didn't know if it was a hand or a leg, human or inhuman, and she flew back. But there was nothing to catch her, the edges of the amulet forever the same distance away. When she landed, a sickening crunch of bone nearly got her to scream. Her dropped wand stained with her blood on the floor. Sofia! Mom? Amber, please tell us what happened. Dad? More voices above. Her family. Frantic. For her. To free her. Even at the cost of freeing Vor. Something built in Sofia's chest while Vor waxed poetic about how she would tear the world down to worship at her feet. Something warm and sure, and it burned away the pain. A white light opened like a flower bud in her chest that stopped Vor dead in her tracks. A frown in the mess of its face. And suddenly, the song flowed like water from her lips. Voice strong and free of doubts, just the way her mother had taught her when she was so very young. There's a bond you'll never know, a power you can't feel. Sofia's legs protested as she stood, but they didn't fail her. Not now. The love you give comes back to you. It makes you strong as steel. The fairy wand was in her hands again, and it felt warm with a new strength that met the next of Vor's blasts in a burst of white-tipped magenta fire. Sofia couldn't see herself, but there was a certainty in her mind that the fire reflected in her eyes, the same way Krista's first spell had done months ago. I'm on my own, but not in heart. I found the light to see me through the darkest night. Vor screamed with everything in its power. This cannot be! There was a wriggling in the mass of a body, a voice that didn't scream with rage. Prisma was still there, trapped and terrified. Sofia dug into her soul, just the way she'd been taught to do for her magics, and carved a path for her love. There was so much she felt like crying, and she gave it to Prisma, coated the woman's body in a layer of its protection as the final verse rang through them both. My will is strong, my heart is true. The wand was pointed directly at the face she refused to let haunt her dreams, and the light nearly blinded her. My love will be the end of you. They had no idea what was going on, but they knew what they were going to do. The amulet had turned white a few minutes ago, and every spell Vor had cast seemed to be gone or destroyed when it did. They feared what it meant when the color returned, a mix of purple and dark blue. Still, they joined hands, protectors, witches and fairies, and sorcerers and animals. People of all different kinds who had been touched by Sofia's kindness. Light was brought out of each of them to pour into the amulet like a hand pulling out the girl they had imagined, and one more. Miranda gasped at the sight of her baby girl. Cuts and bruises littered her skin. Some looked burned at the edges. She looked as though there had been a war in that amulet, and like Sofia had come dangerously close to losing. She landed on bare feet, a wand in her hand, her hair loose and wild, her blood staining her skin. When she opened her eyes, there was a tiredness in them that broke Miranda's heart. Then she spoke, like she was announcing something as mundane as rain on the horizon. Vor is dead and gone. Shock hit the crowd in waves. So many questions spoken in whispers. But all of them were quieted when Sofia passed out. So many people rushed to catch her that she ended up being caught by no less than 11 hands. Miranda batted most of them away once she had her daughter secure in her arms. Tears rolled down her cheeks as Sofia's body flinched away whenever she tried to soothe the edges of the many, many injuries. A fairy with wings like a dragonfly's reclasped the amulet around Sofia's neck, whispering reassurances that she'd made sure there was nothing left of the evil magic on or in it, that Miranda's daughter had been tough enough, that it was time to relax for a while. It was comforting. The party would be postponed. The people here who helped them would be housed in the castle, and the bitch who had started this whole mess was thrown into the dungeon's worst cell. They would hold strong until Sofia woke up. The sun was kind, Sofia thought, as she opened her eyes in her bed. It had been kind enough to hide behind the clouds so that she could wake up slowly in the soft light. There was someone, or something, on either side of her in bed, heavy enough to make the mattress dip. But Sofia didn't bother to look. She didn't want to move yet, and she was so close to falling back asleep. Unfortunately, it was just that moment when she recognized how thirsty she was. Which made sense. She didn't have time to eat or drink since breakfast yesterday morning. Was it yesterday? She sat up reluctantly, wincing at the way her wounds stretched, and reached up to rub her amulet. The surface had looked smooth, but she'd learned pretty quickly that there were actually small cuts and divots all over its surface. There was no way for them to figure out if they were from the first cut that made the amulet, or if they were a result of the many, many shenanigans the thing had been through over the years. Either way, it was a close comfort. Now, if only she could get out of bed. Turned out, the things on the bed with her were her family members. Her siblings curled up at her sides, not quite touching her. Their parents bracketing them. their arms long enough to still reach her sides with feather-light touches. It was nice to be patched up and wake with proof that she was cared for, to be given something instead of being the one to give. Whatever. She was hungry. She still had her enchantment. Sofia used the thin rope to get a hold of the thick one hanging from her ceiling and pulled. It hurt her shoulder a bit, and she noticed with mild curiosity that the bandages were tinged pink. Violet opened the door a little while later, her eyes red-rimmed, and there were dark bags under them. It was strange. Sofia would think she and the others would have been given the option to take a day or two off. She was honestly expecting Bailiwick to be the only one still in the castle. But here Violet was, hurt and disheveled, staring at her like an owl. Could I... Sofia coughed a couple times. She really should have held on to consciousness long enough to drink something yesterday. Could I have some water, please? Violet visibly shook herself out of whatever state she was in and rushed out, probably to get the water. In the meantime, Sofia started the slow process of crawling out of the covers without waking the others, while having a broken right leg. The limb had been wrapped tightly, and while she couldn't remember when exactly it had broken, she knew it had been a pain during her battle, just like it was proving to be a pain now. It almost made her wish she could have wings. Sofia was an idiot. She didn't know if it would be okay to turn into an animal. Who knew how being hurt would mess with things? But a fairy wasn't that different from a person. The magic of the amulet flowed into and around her, just like it had so many times before, and soon enough there were translucent wings fluttering on her back. Though there was something different about the transformation this time around. There was no puff of smoke or dress change, just a warm spot where the wings grew in and their shape was different? Weird. Maybe she should send a letter to Elena or Matteo. Whatever the reason, she wasn't complaining. It was taking a while for Violet to return, though. She may as well have just flown for some water herself. What was that noise? It sounded like a large group charging towards her door. The footsteps were heavy, so there couldn't be any crystalline soldiers. The noise woke Sofia's family, but their sounds were ignorable. A quick glance, swift hands, her wand was in her right hand, and her enchantment moved to her left. The first set of doors were breached. She could now hear some of the voices in the choir. Sofia sighed and lowered her wand back to the table with a smile. Those voices weren't the discord she feared. They were her idiot friends. Her wings fluttered with the force of her giggles when the door burst open and Krista was the first to reach her and start flying circles around her. Featherlight touches checking over. Every injury, every bandaged wound, and even some places that didn't have either. Sofia, what? I'm fine, Mom. Krista just has to stop. Krista pulled Sofia up into a carefully strong hug, her legs curling to act like a chair and arms holding the princess secure against her chest, hovering the two in the air. Krista! You tough little princess! You scared the shit out of everyone! Says you. Sofia pushed her way out of the hold, flailing a bit to the gasps of her parents before fluttering gently to Violet, who was doing her best to keep the others from rushing in. Can you all wait outside for a bit? I gotta talk with my mom and dad really fast. Several of the people there booed. Mostly the protectors, but Jade, Ruby, and Lucinda also joined in. Come on, Sofia. We want to hear how you beat Vor. Ruby fell into Jade's side as she pleaded. Yeah. Jade grabbed Ruby's shoulder. Think any of those are gonna scar? Lucinda shoved past the two. Screw how you beat that thing! How did you get a fairy wand and wings? The royals in the small crowd looked strangely uncomfortable at the lack of manners. Desmond and Vivian especially looked like they were waiting for someone to be telling them to be quiet. But Sofia just smiled. I know. I'll fill you in on mostly everything later after I give my formal report. Pinky promise. She was definitely not telling them about how fucking horrifying that fight was. But right now, out. Soon, almost everyone had reluctantly filed out. Almost. Orion and Vega flew into the room with an air of seriousness that had Sofia sink to hover just above the ground. We're sorry, Your Highnesses, but we must insist on not postponing this decision. Decision? A hand took Sofia's, and she looked to find her parents flanking her. Yes, Vega smiled, and pulled out a small purple thing. You have more than proved You have more than proved that you've outgrown the title of trainee. Orion kneeled and took Sofia's hand in his, the one with her enchantment, and guided her to take the sign of a protector's apart until it revealed a place just the right size to fit the thing in Vega's hand. You do have the choice to refuse. Not a chance. Sofia loved being a protector, being able to help people, and she should probably clarify that. I want to keep helping people. Doing this lets me do that, and I'll have you guys' help if I get over my head. That was apparently the right answer for the magic in the enchantment, or the charm, or whatever it was that flared. But there was a shining silver light that took over her vision. When it faded, the enchantment had changed. It was slimmer now, the logo imprinted instead of attached, and it had a pattern of magenta vines with silver flowers on the purple background. It looked just like something Sofia had dreamed about once. Well then, it looks like the universe agrees that you should be one of this world's guardians. Welcome to the Order of Proper Protector Sofia of the Neverrealm. What the actual fuck? Miranda just watched her daughter, her baby girl, fly around on wings she apparently grew with the magic in the amulet, and then became part of a peacekeeping organization she was being trained by for the past year without telling anyone except Amber, because Amber caught her in the secret tunnels the castle had that Roland knew nothing about. Now, she was being told about all of the adventures Sofia had been on that Matilda knew about and encouraged. There were going to be words between them, mark her words. But Sofia was hurt, and she had just saved everyone, and Miranda wasn't about to kick her when she was already facing consequences for her actions. So, for now, they would just celebrate being safe. They'd come up with new rules later and make sure that Sofia knew that she took priority, that all Miranda's children knew they could talk to her. It might take time, but soon they would at least let her know if they were going somewhere. Hopefully. That is the end of this work. If you would like to read it for yourself, or comment, or give kudos, please look to the author's AO3 account.